Welcome back to Hater Love It. I'm your host, Andrew Wilmon. Yes, this is going to be an Oregon Ducks college football playoff focused episode. I apologize to absolutely nobody. They did their job, they won their games, and now they're playing in the CFP. That's usually how earning airtime works. So, welcome back to the haters. Welcome back to the lovers. Hopefully, you're both stuck here. Quick housekeeping around the Northwest. Cougs coaching and recruiting. We'll get to that. Got a new head honcho there in Pullman. Oregon State piecing together a full staff. We will also get to that later. And as for whether or not the Huskies are going to have the same coach next year, I don't know. Couldn't tell you if I wanted to. Would be funny if they didn't. Wouldn't be the worst if he was still there, but we'll address it when the time comes. I'm sure all three coaching staffs are very busy, or at least they will be once the time comes where they're allowed to talk to transfers again. Something about meaningful playoff football being played by a select few teams getting in the way of all that. Tough problem to have. All right, let's talk Ducks. Had all our pressers today where we got to hear Dan talk, got to hear Poncho talk, Dante talk a little bit. I know there was Will, Kenyon, a couple other guys, Noah. Only going to unpack a couple of those. Dan gave you the usual, just enough to classify it as addressing the press. No absolute news on Evan DeCorian or Gary Bryant Jr., despite the fact that all three were active participants in practice today. And he gave credit where credit's due per usual. Just noting that this JMU offense is explosive with a mobile quarterback, run game that travels well, and they throw a lot of mixed looks at you defensively. Also noted that they're one of the only teams in the country that is top 10 on offense as well as top 10 in defense. If you're familiar with Dan addressing the press at this point, you know he gives just enough for you to know that the building is prepared. Nothing more, nothing less. If you follow the Ducks as closely as we do in my household, you know that the Ducks offensive line are finalists for the Joe Moore Award for the third time in 4 years, which tells you this is one of the most consistent offensive lines in the country for the better part of the last half decade. Couple things Poncho touched on today that I really liked was just the fact that he talks about it doesn't matter if you're a first string or second string or a third string guy, we know who we are. And that's the law firm. That's the nickname that this offensive line unit has taken over the course of the last couple of years. They've really took it and ran with it this year, given the fact that we've got quite a bit of depth, quite a bit of talent, and big bodies moving big bodies on the other side of the ball, whether they're returning juniors, seniors, freshmen, sophomores. Whoever's been called on this year has stepped up and stepped up big in big-time games on numerous occasions. So the law firm and them knowing who they are is not branding. That's simply the truth. Poncho did not take the time to single out individual stars. He took the time to lasso up the room as a whole. Now, look, I'm not overlooking James Madison. That's obviously a game that needs to be taken care of and not handled lightly. But if they are who they are, then that should bode extremely well for us when traveling out to the Orange Bowl to play against Texas Tech. Because that defensive front is up there with Indiana and Ohio State. Only time will tell on that one, but knowing who you are in December and January is a hell of a lot more important than knowing who you are in September. Speaking of calendar months, now that November is over, I'd like to unpack that now that I don't have to worry about the fear of it biting me in the ass. And the reason I picked November is because this is when a lot of you guys decided Oregon was done. Decided that Oregon had two very tough road games that they were not going to be able to push through. Those being Iowa and Washington. All I heard was how hard it is to play at Husky Stadium, how hard it is to play at Kinnick. Ducks aren't going to make the playoffs. Mr. Feldman, I know this is supposed to be your bold prediction that Oregon was going to flop at Iowa and Washington, but the Ducks did not break. Were they a little bent at Iowa? Probably, but it's bend, don't break. The Ducks went 4-0 in November while outscoring opponents 128-70. Yes, Indiana threw a mean left jab early. Yes, injuries threw a mean right hook directly after. But instead of folding, the Ducks adjusted. And Dan said it himself. Our guys were approaching each game like it had a life of its own. For a team that graduated 70% of its snaps and almost 40% of its snaps this year were taken by underclassmen, that's not just surviving November by them. That's maturity on display. And in my opinion, that's mastering the month of November, which we very badly needed to be in the position that we're in currently. So what is that? Obviously 5 seed with a very beautiful path to the national championship. You got James Madison, Texas Tech, and then likely Indiana rematch if we get through that, ending up in a spot in the national championship. Another very important subplot of that is Dante Moore. Will he stay or will he go? Let's talk Dante. Through 12 games, we're looking at just over 2,700 yards, 24 tutties, 6 picks, and a 72.5% completion percentage. That's legit. And Dante says there has not yet been a decision made one way or the other as far as staying or going. Today he noted My main thing is being where my feet are. That doesn't feel like uncertainty at all. That feels like awareness. Although he did answer a couple other questions stating that he was wanting to play for guys playing their last game in Ducks uniforms this postseason. Do what you will with that. But I think what this all boils down to is how this postseason goes and when this postseason finishes. If Oregon wins a national championship, I think there is a single-digit percentage odds that Dante Moore stays and plays football in Eugene, Oregon next year. However, if the Ducks do not win a national championship this year, I think there is a very real chance that we get to see one more year of Dante Moore in a Ducks uniform. I would say maybe even a 7 out of 10 chance. And I keep seeing stuff about portal quarterbacks, Raiola, Levitt, whoever. If they come in, whatever, that's fine. However, if this is a team that does not win a national championship and Dante Moore is coming back, I want it to be known to whoever wants to portal in that they're signing up to sit. They're signing up to do exactly what Dante Moore did. That's got to be the upfront contract if we don't end up winning it all. Even if we do, I don't think I'm a fan of portaling in anybody. I would love to have Austin Novosad driving the car next year. I would love Achille to be next in line after that. And the reason I say Novosad and then Achille is because if Novosad ends up staying, I would assume that Moga portals out. I don't even know if I want Levitt or Raiola anywhere near this program. I feel like with how close the QB battle was towards the end of our camp, we have our guy that's next in line sitting on the roster right now. Let's just say that Dante does go. Say we win the national championship or we don't, and Dante Moore decides that he wants to go be a top 5 to 10 pick. Give me Novosad and then give me Achille after that. If these guys are what we thought they were, then we're in good hands. Anyways, back to the here and now. Here's why I've got the Oregon Ducks winning the national championship. The backbone of this team is its defense and its ability to run the ball. Aside from issues against Washington, Oregon really has not had troubles moving the football on the ground. Even against Indiana, all 3 active running backs in that game were averaging a first down every 2 touches. Is that going to work with flying colors against Texas Tech? I do not know. We've got a line that, again, like I mentioned, is up for the Joe Moore Award. If we can run the ball half decently against Texas Tech and give Dante the same or even slightly better protection than we did against Indiana, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. In hindsight, watching that game, Dante ran himself into or panicked himself into more of those sacks than the offensive line was responsible for. I think since that game, he showed a tremendous amount of poise, maturity, and growth. And rolling into the college football playoff, I am very confident in what Dante Moore brings to the table for us. So you give me that, and you give me DeCorian, Evan, and Gary back for that Texas Tech matchup. I don't know if Texas Tech's offense can handle that. Sure, spot Texas Tech a turnover or two, but I don't see that offense regularly moving the ball on our guys. So give me that defense, give me that 3-headed monster coming out of the backfield, and give me a dramatically improved Dante since the Indiana loss. There is absolutely no reason that we can't go toe-to-toe with anybody. Hate it or love it, Oregon does know exactly who they are. And the teams that know who they are tend to be the ones standing at the end. Thanks for watching, and go Ducks.